Hey everybody, welcome to the I Am Podcast YouTube channel.
Make sure to tap the bell, subscribe, and comment down below.
Well, hi everybody.
Welcome back to the I Am Podcast.
We are very excited to be sitting here with guest Todd today. Todd, would you introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, hi. It's great to be with you guys today. I'm a news anchor with CTV. I've been with CTV for about 25 years, and I have been trying to become a father for most of that time, certainly the last 10 years or so. And my partner and I are in the process of a journey to become dads. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of your show today.
Can I just say you don't look old enough to have been a news anchor for 25 years? Like, I don't know what you're doing, but I need the tips.
Lots of moisturizer and good genetics, I suppose. Yeah, I turned 50 in October.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
That's unreal.
I don't believe
Yeah.
it. You don't look it. Not a day. Not a day over 25.
So, Todd, you also are a board member, is that correct, with the Fertility Friends Foundation?
Yeah, I am. So, Fertility Friends Foundation approached me about 6 months ago through actually a member who's on the board as well, Kevin, and he had been helping me and my partner with some surrogacy issues, trying to help us with a surrogate, and he mentioned the foundation, and I had heard a little bit about it, and he explained more, and I thought they did a great, great service out there helping people with resources and some financial help people who are dealing with IVF issues. And as everybody watching and listening knows, it can be very financially challenging. And I thought they were a great organization out there just because when I started this process a number of years ago, it was really kind of flailing in the dark and it was hard to figure out where to go, what to do, who to talk to. So Kevin said to me, would you be interested in being on the board? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I would love to be on the board, and I'd love to, help people in any way, explain what happened to me, and also, do outreach with the LGBTQ community, people who are curious about becoming parents and what that looks like, how the journey is, because I have a number of friends who have done that and are, various stages of that whole process. So I joined the board, and I've been on their board for about 4 months now, and it's been great.
Cool.
That's beautiful.
Well, backing it up, tell us how you got to here.
How long have you and your partner been together?
We've been together for about 8 years.
Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a long time, and my journey to become a dad. I've always wanted to be a kid, basically, or father since I was a kid myself,
Right.
Yeah.
and just sort of trying to figure out how to make that happen. And I would say probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I went to a community center here in Toronto that had this class, which was all about parenting for gay dads and what you need to do and what the process is like from A to Z and that kind of thing. And so I took that course years ago, and I sort of was fascinated about all the different things you can do, and whether it's surrogacy, whether it's adoption, whether it's co-parenting, and that kind of set the stage for what would come later. And then probably about 4.5 years ago, I actually started to make real moves where I began to go to a number of fertility clinics to get information on what they offered, what they could do, what the whole thing would look like. And I eventually chose one about 4 years ago. And we have had significant challenges because, as you can see, there are no kids behind me yet. But it's been a bit of a roller coaster. A lot of great things, some setbacks as well, and we continue to push forward with that goal in mind. So I'm hoping that within a year or so we may have a baby.
What brought you to the clinic you chose? As someone, we have a lot of intended parents who are listeners and a lot of people who are very new to the journey. So what helped you in your decision to end up where you are?
I would say that I had talked to friends of mine who had used different clinics, and the one that I ended up choosing here in Toronto was one that had a lot of positive reviews, and people had worked with them. They were also one of the biggest in the country, and I think I went to four,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all great in their own way, but this one seemed to be just, I don't know, they seemed to be bigger, and they were closer to where I live, and it just kind of made more sense. And one of the surrogates that we had spoken to prior to beginning with the surrogate we got, but another woman, she had worked with them as well. So there was some good references that
Mm-hmm.
were in place, and so we decided to go with them.
Right. How did it? How did you come to the step of finding your surrogate?
Yeah, that's very challenging, as both of you know.
Yeah.
It was a long, long journey. So once we signed up with a clinic and worked with the doctor, we then had to find, obviously, an egg donor and a surrogate. And we signed up with two different agencies to help
Mm-hmm.
us with that. And again, it was the same thing. It was sort of shopping around, trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out what the, best fit was for us, who the different players are out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be very intimidating and very daunting because you're sort of operating a little bit in the dark.
Yeah.
You sort of you hear about these different agencies and clinics and players, and you're wondering, who is best for me and which one is the greatest fit. And so we ended up choosing again a surrogacy consulting company that was one of the biggest in the country and that had been used by friends of ours. So we
Mm-hmm.
decided to go with them. And again, you're not sure how long this process is going to take, and so you start off, I think, a little bit naive, and
Yeah.
you think, oh well, this won't take very long. We'll find a surrogate within a month or two. Of course, that's not really how it works, and it probably took us, I would say, at least 8 months or so, maybe even closer to a year, before we had matched with a surrogate
Mm-hmm.
and had developed a relationship with her, and she was cleared medically, and we began our first transfer. So it was a long process. And there were a lot of false starts. There were other surrogates that come up, and for whatever reason, it didn't work. And so we ended up with a surrogate that we worked with, and we did four transfers with her, and
Mm-hmm.
she was great. We're still friends,
Right.
and we still have a great relationship with her. And you develop this very interesting bond
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
over the course of, I guess it was about 7 months, where we tried to do four different transfers. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And she was very upset about it. She felt very bad, even though
Mm-hmm.
really it hasn't, it's not her fault at
Yeah.
all. We were trying to figure out, what had gone wrong. So were the doctors. She was willing to keep trying and keep trying. But eventually, after four different transfers of a total of five embryos, it didn't work.
Yeah.
There was no viable pregnancy, and there was briefly a pregnancy, but it didn't work out, which is a whole other thing. That's a
Yeah.
Yeah.
real sort
Yeah.
of psychological nightmare when that
It's
kind of thing
very
happens. And
traumatic.
so, eventually we decided that we would try to find another surrogate, and we did. We found another one who was recommended to us, who had worked with friends of ours, and we began a relationship with her, and we had new embryos created. And then, kind of at the last minute, she had a number of things that were going on with her health wise and in her home life. And unfortunately, she said, "Look, guys, I'm really sorry, but I can't move forward with you. I know we're on the verge of doing a first transfer, but I'm just not in the place anymore where I can do this." So then we had to find a third surrogate, and we have found one now,
Right.
and she has passed her medical clearance, and we're in the process of
Congratulations.
doing our legal agreements,
Right.
and we're hoping to do a transfer in the beginning of May, so within about
Nice.
6 weeks or so from now.
So Team Baby 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a real journey, that's for sure.
What have you guys found to be the most, I mean, you're very seasoned at this point to getting to this place. What do you guys find is the most stressful time for you guys?
The waiting,
Yeah.
the powerlessness, the feeling that these things are kind of operating without a lot of control. You
Mm-hmm.
have to sort of make peace, not to sound, too spiritual, but I think you need to make kind of peace with the universe about these things kind of unfolding the way they're going to. I mean, it's been a cautionary tale, and it's not how I thought it was going to go, to be honest. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I thought, again, I was sort of naive and maybe unrealistic. I thought that it was going to play out within the first, I don't know, year, two, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
But we are now at the 4 year mark. And if this latest journey goes successful and it all works out, it'll probably be about 5 years from the day that I walked into that fertility clinic to the day that we would have a baby. And even then, I mean, there's no, as you know,
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that even this third surrogate and a brand new batch of embryos created necessarily guarantees anything. There's really no way to know. So that's been the most challenging thing, has been the powerlessness of it, and just sort of trying to accept that you're doing everything you can. There's nothing you're doing wrong. It's nobody's fault. It's not the fault of the doctors or the egg donors or the IPs. It's just one of those things where, I have a friend of mine who's a biologist, and he's a PhD, and he teaches at McGill in Montreal. And he said, getting pregnant is very difficult. People don't realize this. I mean, it's actually a very difficult process, and once you start to pull it apart and realize what's going on, there are all sorts of things that can go wrong and do go wrong. So that's been a challenge. There have been some difficult times. There have been times where I almost wanted to walk away from all of this. Fortunately, those were sort of brief in the moment, angry moments where I was thinking, "What am I doing?" But some of those setbacks just made me more determined than ever to make it happen.
You really do have to surrender yourself to this journey, and you're just at the mercy of so many different moving parts. But I think it's a really beautiful thing when it really does all come together. We've talked about this a lot. By the time a set of intended parents get that baby, oftentimes they've waited. We saw a statistic, it's been a while ago since this one came out, but it's like the average time is 8 to 10 years for getting your baby. And so by the time you put all that time in, and there's so many people who've invested themselves in this journey and have put themselves out there to help others, like the amount of love these little babies get is just insurmountable, because so many people have had a hand in bringing them to this point.
We figured it out, like if a journey goes how it should, so like one egg donor, one surrogate, all good, 80 people have touched that baby's life. That's 80 people that are going to love that baby. Whether they see that baby all the time or not, they still have love in their heart, right? How beautiful is that all of those people wish the best for your baby. So now you just got way more people to love on your baby.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And certainly, this kind of process is something that, it makes you realize just how determined you are to start a family. Because, it's not sort of a split-second decision. It's not an accident. It's certainly something that is very intentional. And that there are a lot of hurdles and challenges and costs, psychologically, emotionally, financially, that you have to go through. And I mean, there are a lot of people who've been involved with us so far. And that, I mean, even within, the agencies and the doctors and the surrogates and the egg donors. And then, of course, you play it out, and then there's your friends and your family and your colleagues. And they're all kind of aware of it. They're aware of all these, they're aware of all the setbacks you go through. And obviously, as you start to become more public with it, and some people are very private about it, I understand that, and I have been too in the past, you start to find other people who've been through this before and who have, had a lot of challenges in their own way, or people who were blessed and were very successful. I mean, I have friends who had 2 embryos, the first surrogate, she got pregnant both times, delivered 2 healthy babies, done within 3 years. And that's just mind blowing. I was like, wow.
But
sometimes
they
kind
happens.
of, that they were very lucky in that way, because typically, as you were just alluding to, it doesn't usually go that way.
No. Well, and we actually, not long ago, we had a Windsor area doctor on the podcast, actually, who does a lot of forward medical thinking and just looking at the statistics and data. And really, we used to say it was 1 in 6 couples struggled with fertility or needed help somehow, whether they were part of the LGBTQ community or whatever that looked like. And the statistics now say it's 1 in 4. So that's 25% of your population. Like, this is a very common thing. I mean, you think about all the people you've even mentioned since we started talking who've also done a similar journey to you guys.
Yeah, and I know that they've all had their challenges too. And, there have been a lot of people I know who tried this too, again, in the gay community in particular, and it just was, it was just too much for them, either emotionally or financially. They had
Mm-hmm.
setbacks. It didn't work out the way they thought it was going to be, and so they decided to just, I hate to use the term give up, but to a certain extent, they decided they just couldn't keep going with it. And others tried, and they had a certain amount of, financial resources to devote to this. And once those were exhausted, there was not really a viable way for them to move forward, and I'm fortunate enough that, thanks to, my job and some, of my parents' generosity and other things along the way, that I've been able to kind of keep going with this
Right.
Yeah.
through 2 cycles and 3 surrogates. But some people can't, as you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and so trying to get the word out there to let people know about, how challenging it can be, but also, how many wonderful people you meet along the way is
Yeah.
also important, I think. And that's what the foundation that I'm a part of is I think, is really helping out, because as you know, they do help people with some financial aid,
Yeah.
which can sometimes make a difference between
Mm-hmm.
being able to go forward or not.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. The finances needed for this is wild. Like, it's so sad that almost every other thing in Canada, healthcare wise, is covered, and this just is not in any way. Like, your first consultation might be, but that's it. Like, how do we how do we do that and not feel any kind of like remorse or guilt that we put people in this situation?
Yeah, it's super challenging, right?
Yeah.
And I know that the laws are changing, in real time, like the tax laws in Canada. You're probably aware
Yep.
that even where my journey was, let's say 5, 6 years ago, there are now more advantages, today than there were 5 years ago in
Mm-hmm.
terms of what you're able to claim. My company recently brought in, sort of a one-time benefit for people who are doing this.
Right.
But
We are
that just
starting to see some
started
of
in
that.
January of this year. So,
Yeah.
had it been last year, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I had a friend of mine who worked for Rogers, and he told me, I know about 2 years ago, that they had this benefit. And I called our HR people and I said, so do we have anything like this for surrogacy, IVF, adoption? And, they were, no, but we're thinking about it. Anyway, fortunately now, as of January, there is a one-time, it doesn't, obviously cover anywhere near the total
Yeah.
cost,
Right.
but it helps.
Yeah.
That plus some more advantageous benefits on taxes also help.
Yes.
But, at the end of the day, it's very, very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's so sad, honestly, because it's not something that's even an option for a lot of families.
Yeah,
So,
and so that also can be frustrating, right?
yeah.
Because you are in a situation where, it's funny, you find yourself sometimes getting a little frustrated when you see, I'm at home right now, and there'll be, I'll see people walking down the sidewalk with 3 kids in the carriages, and I'm thinking, oh boy, like I just, yeah,
The frustration can
sometimes,
get to
I
be
think
very
a lot of
real.
people don't realize, if they've never been through this journey,
Mm-hmm.
wherever they are in the IVF situation, or, they don't necessarily understand um, the toll that it takes, because it's a little bit easier, I think, for people in different circumstances.
Absolutely. The mental resiliency that you have, Todd, and everyone in your shoes has is incredible. I hope you know that.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a partner, that really helps. When you have support from family and friends, that helps. Other people who've been through the journey have been really supportive, and that's been a big help. And I think, everyone who's part of this in one way, shape, or form, including the two of you, you know what everybody will go through, right? And some people
Yeah.
will have a lot of challenges, and some people will have less, but it is always challenging, and there's a lot of sort of emotional and psychological costs, and sometimes you think, why am I doing this? Like this just seems like sort of a never-ending battle, and it seems like mission impossible. But then you talk to other people who've been through far worse situations. I've got a friend, these two guys who immigrated to Canada from Ireland, and I think they went through, I think it took 7 or 8 years
Yeah.
before they finally had a child. And I was like, wow, 7 or 8 years. And they were like, yep, we tried this, we tried that, we switched this, we went to a different clinic, we went to a different country, we did this, blah, 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 and nothing, just, and now they have 2 kids. But it took them, I think, 9 years in total.
Wow. It's there's so many variables at play, and it's so, you really can get stuck in the wondering why loop, and the, how did we get here, and how can we make this better, and what can we do different this time, and those loops. And a conversation we often have is, everyone, you're full force into this journey, and you're immersed, and everything, your mind just never stops on it. But one thing we talk about, and you were a person before you were on this journey. You had passions and hobbies and things that made you that are still separate, and you are still you separate of this journey to parenthood. So how do you blend the two together? What are you doing to still be you through this very intense time?
That's a great question. So here's what I've learned to do. I've learned to try to compartmentalize it. So in years past, it was more all encompassing,
Right.
and there would be a setback, and it would turn me in, like I would go into a downward spiral.
Yeah.
Something wouldn't work out. I mentioned, the surrogate that we had worked with for 8 or 9 months, and then right at the end, like literally about a month before the transfer, it just didn't work for her, and that was very difficult because at that point, we realized we had to start effectively all over again, square one, in terms of finding a new surrogate. And I think now I've become better at saying, okay, you know what? This is kind of like a soundtrack that's playing in the background. It's very important, but I can no longer devote all of my psychic energy to it. I have to be able to still have my social life and have my hobbies and work on my relationship and focus on my job and my family and my friends and vacations and all that kind of stuff, because otherwise it can just be really overwhelming. So that's what I do. And it took a while. I'd say the first 2 or 3 years, this was very prominent. And now it's a little bit less so, just sort of as a bit of a defense mechanism, because,
sure.
like you say, that being a parent, or this journey to become a parent, is one facet of your life. And it's a very important facet, but I think sometimes you have to make sure that it doesn't take over your entire life, because then when you do have setbacks and problems and issues, then it can really pull you down.
Absolutely. So what are your hobbies, Todd?
Oh, I am a big comic book fan. I am a
That's
big geek. I love sci-fi. I love all that kind of stuff. I love travel. I love going to the gym. I love reading. I'm a big fan of history and current affairs. Obviously, I work on the news, so I'm a big fan of the news. Yeah, so so I have lots of stuff I do, and it's funny because a couple of my friends who I'm close with, they like to tease me. They're like, well, once you have a little baby, you're not going to be able to do X anymore. We're not going to see you anymore at Y. You won't be available to do Z and all that kind of stuff. And they're teasing, but it is funny. It's like, they often say you can never be fully prepared to be a parent, and that's absolutely true. And the prospect is still very terrifying in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I certainly think that after the last 4 or 5 years, like, I've been able to sort of psychologically get myself
right.
so ready that
Yeah.
some of those things that I won't be able to do as much anymore, I'm okay with. Like, I feel more ready than I've ever been, if that
Well,
makes
I think
sense.
once you have walked through what you guys have been through, you're like, take it all. Like, I will trade it all to be the person walking down the street pushing a stroller. Like,
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you've served your time, so to speak, you're ready. Like, yeah. I'll get there
And-
eventually, but for now I push a stroller down the street.
Do you know what though? Like, you can take your kids anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, we just take our kids wherever we go.
We went out for supper last night and
Yeah.
my toddler spilled water all over my
Yeah.
lap. And you know what? It was okay.
Yeah. We just take our kids. Yeah.
And you know what? It's pretty cool getting to share the things that are important to you with your kids.
Yeah.
Especially as they get a little, older and start using their words and aren't just a little cute blob you cuddle.
Yeah.
Like, it gets really fun and really fascinating. Like, I swear, in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So, Todd, I have a question. Do you know your egg donors?
Yeah, I was
and
actually...
How many egg donors did you have in total?
As 2 egg donors, we're just a little fascinated with that part of the journey.
Okay, so again, this part, I mean, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but this one was also challenging. So what ended up happening was, again, people listening are maybe familiar, or that that also is a daunting task because you have to pick the person who is the biological mother,
Yeah.
and it's it's an experience that most people never have to go through. So all of a sudden, you're thinking, oh boy, like who do I choose? What are the metrics here? Like, what am I looking for? Am I looking at somebody's age? Am I looking at their, where they live? Am I looking at what their job is? Am I looking at the fact that they have a nice smile? Am I looking at their photos? Am I looking at their kids? Like all these different things that play out in your mind, and you're thinking, um, this is really kind of overwhelming. So basically, we started to look through profiles, as you know, is what you do. And it's kind of like a dating thing in the sense that you're looking at these pictures of people and you hear a little bit of their stories and you're trying to kind of build a narrative around this person and whether you think that they would be, sort of the right choice. I mean, it's a very weird experience. I mean, this, it's like, okay, and why this and why this person and not that person? And so we found a woman that we liked. She lived in Ottawa, and she was younger. I think she was 22, and she went for the psychological assessment, and she just no. I guess it was something that she was interested in doing theoretically, and then when she met with the counselor, and the counselor explained what it involved or what was going to happen, she decided that it's not what she wanted. So then we had to find a new one, a new egg donor, and we found a woman who had done it many times before. So we thought, okay, this is probably good because she's had many experiences. I think she had done maybe 8 or 9 different retrievals.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so the agency knew her. She was, a known commodity, and I think there had been some successful pregnancies as a result. So we chose her.
Yeah.
And that was great. We worked with her. But as you know, the transfers didn't work. And so we went through our embryos and there were none left. So we had to move on and find a new egg donor. So this would be like the third one that we were connecting with. And there again, there were a number of issues with the egg donors there was one woman who lived in New Brunswick. So there was a travel issue. She was on board, but then the timeline didn't work for her. So that was delayed a few months. Then we found another one that lived in the Greater Toronto area, and it looked like it was going to be a good match. And then she decided to back out because she had her own private company and it was a busy time. She worked in weddings and planning. So the summer didn't work for her. So it would have to be in the fall. So then we went to a 5th or a 6th egg donor. And we finally found, I guess, the 6th one. And we had embryos created with her. And we were fortunate. We ended up with 8 high quality euploid, people are familiar with the term, embryos. And those are what we have currently at our fertility clinic.
Right.
But it is just even the egg donor side of it it's a really strange experience, because you're making a baby, together. And so there's all sorts of, yeah. So the answer to your question is we did always know who the egg donors were. Yes, that was important to me and to my partner because we wanted there to be some kind of a connection.
Right.
Based on what the egg donor was comfortable with down the line.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know who they were, and I wanted them to know that they were a part of this kind of wonderful process. And so, yeah, that's it.
It's a very... we're lucky because we get to see it from both sides as a donor and from the intended parent side. And, these aren't things you think about if you are for instance, a heterosexual man at the bar who meets a girl, takes her home, all of a sudden she's pregnant. Like, there's not the same thought that is, what you guys did. And, turning the page from another angle, if you're a mom, if you're a female who's been on this journey for 10 years and all of a sudden you need an egg donor, like, that's a very different, very real psychological loop to go through, and to think about, who this person will be, because all this time you thought it was going to be you. Yeah. And it can be a very overwhelming process, because all of a sudden you're thinking things you've never thought before.
Yeah. Like, well, she only got 80s in high school. Should it be more? Like, is her smile really cute enough? Like, yeah,
does she look like us? Is she?
Yeah. Does she look like your sister or my sister? Yeah.
The things that people think through, and some people we work with are fortunate enough to have someone in their life step up and do this for them. Yeah. But a lot of people don't have someone in their life who are willing to step up and do this for them. And it's a very...
And it is, I think it's interesting that you said it's kind of like a dating profile, because it does kind of feel like that in some situations where you're like, oh, well,
Ashley or Jessica.
Yeah.
Or maybe Amy. Like, it's very...
Yeah, it is. And most people just have no idea.
No, they don't. And you talked about the bar situation, and my partner and I often joke about this. It's the sort of, it's the $12 bottle of wine scenario, with all due respect, where, a straight couple, sometimes that's the cost is $12.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and,
100%.
That can be also sometimes a little frustrating. And yeah, and of course, as you try to find egg donors or surrogates, you may work with an agency, as most people do. Yeah. But then, of course, you may have to branch out because it's not really working either the way you want it to or as fast as you want it to. So you've got to start to get enterprising on it. And this is what we did. I mean, we worked, we are still working technically with a surrogacy agency, but they are not the ones that found surrogate 2 or 3. We found them through Facebook or through word of mouth or through that kind of thing, because again, you're never exactly sure how long a process is going to take. And some of these agencies are not necessarily as transparent about what's happening, and are you really priority one? You're told that, but are you necessarily priority one? You're not sure, especially if you've been given one surrogate and it didn't work out. Then there's this sense that maybe the priority is no longer on, you, for example. So you got to kind of reach out and try other avenues. Also very weird, right? Facebook, I mean, you're thinking, okay, like, so that also happens. And then, of course, being gay, there's also this whole thing about how, should you guys even be doing this? You're 2 guys, and, there's all sorts of other issues that come into play there, right? From people, even within the gay community, there are some who think, why would you ever want to do that? Like, that doesn't, it's just not something that some people are interested in doing. So there's kind of like multiple overlapping challenges that go on, and you develop a thick skin over time, that's for sure.
Well, and it's very hard when all you have on your heart is just wanting to be a parent. Like, really, at the root of all of this is because Todd wants to be a dad. And that's okay.
Yeah.
No matter how the journey to get here, whether it was the $12 bottle of wine or, we don't even want to put a dollar amount on how many dollars has been put into this, at the end of the day, the desire is the same.
Yeah. And it's allowed, and it should be celebrated.
It's definitely, my heart goes out to you, Todd, because this is a long and hard journey, and I would like to think there are little steps that we take to soften some of those things for you, that...
Yeah, it does, like, it's a really long and hard journey, but it doesn't all have to be hard. There are really good moments in the journey, too.
Yeah, I mean, we developed a great relationship with both of our previous surrogates and the current one. Yeah. And we're still texting, still in communication, still, 100%. Because, the fact that it didn't work out to a pregnancy, the reality is they still were part of your journey and got you closer to the end goal. And they're aware of that, we're aware of that. And so, as you said, they're part of this kind of holistic family of people, different parts of the journey, and, there are a lot of really fun things that happen too. I mean, you meet lots of interesting people, you're so involved, you're so immersed in it in terms of, are we getting the PGS testing on the embryos? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Do we want a known donor? What's our relationship going to be with the surrogate? What's she like? We've met our first surrogate. We met her and her husband and her kids many times during the journey. Same with the second one, same with the third one. So, you become, you broaden out your family, and these are new relationships. Again, just to kind of reiterate what we were talking about, I mean, most people don't have those kind of relationships with other people where, look, this person is carrying your baby. This person is, donating one of their eggs to help you create an embryo that will become a baby. Like, they're kind of new pathways in relationships, and they're, you're trying to navigate it, right? And you always have to be respectful and transparent and very good at communication so that no one ever feels that they are being taken advantage of or exploited or used or anything like that. And you just always be really aware of that as you said at the very beginning, there are so many different players, and people have lives, jobs, kids, dreams, priorities, and things can happen, and sometimes it can take the journey in a different direction than you were hoping for. But you're dealing with real people who are living their lives, and stuff happens sometimes. And so even if it can be frustrating, you just have to understand that. And so yeah, it's been there's been a lot of growth, I think. I think I'm a better person than I was 5 years ago.
Well, and I think from the flip side, as donors and surrogates, sometimes I think that maybe we don't truly understand how much hope intended parents put into us, because we're the living, breathing thing in front of you that's bringing you some hope today. And I think that's,
and I think and then some of them do know, and then when it doesn't work out, of course it's heartbreaking for you, but it is heartbreaking for the donor or surrogate too.
Yeah, depending on the story, and it happens because you've put yourself out there to help someone you've never met before, and they've got so much hope on you, and you just so badly want your body to do this and do this well for them. Yeah. Like, the donors and surrogates put a lot of pressure on themselves to make this dream. As you've had a surrogate with 4 failed transfers. Like, that was not what she wanted at all. No. Like, she wanted this for you just as bad as you wanted it for you.
Yeah, and I should point out that she actually went on within about 6 months. She matched with another couple, and she got pregnant, and she gave birth. Wow. So again, it's one of these things where she felt very bad about about this not working with us, because we had a really good relationship, and we kept saying, we were with her for every appointment, right? Mm-hmm. She lives about an hour and a half outside Toronto, near Peterborough, Ontario. And, it can be a little daunting to come into Toronto, right, on your own, and it's like a little overwhelming. So my partner Michael and I we were here with her for every appointment that she came in, and when she was staying overnight, we hung out in the hotel and everything. And so it was a really good relationship, and she felt very depressed after 4 transfers that it didn't work, especially the last one where there was a brief pregnancy. Yeah. And then it didn't work. That was very difficult for all of us. But then, she matched, she understood why, based on doctor's advice, that we would try to find another surrogate. Right. And she ended up having a baby with another couple. And we were really happy for her. Of course, your mind wonders, well, what did we do wrong? Like, was it our embryo? Was it us? What was it? But, you'll never have the answer, right? The doctor said to me, could be anything, the surrogate said to me, the doctors told me that after 3 or 4 tries with you guys, maybe my body was ready, but right. Something that we had tried so many times, if we had tried once more with you, maybe, anyway, you can't let yourself think that, but no. It's just interesting to know how with the next set of IPs it worked.
Yeah. Well, and so much, it's 2024, and we have so much science, and we have so much knowledge, and we have so much data, and at the end of the day, Mother Nature still holds the key there can be no reason for all of these fails, and like you said, you have someone go on and help someone else, and at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of Mother Nature, and sometimes she really doesn't deal you a good deck.
Okay, but Todd, on a happier note, what is something
Yes.
that most people don't know about you?
What is something that people don't know about me? Well, I don't take myself seriously, and I work on television. I've been with CTV for almost 25 years, and I do take my job seriously. But I like to have a lot of fun. I like to make fun of myself, and I really try to make sure that I don't let my ego or anything like that ever sort of be in the driver's seat. And I like to. It's funny because I told you at the beginning that I'm 50, but I still feel 18. And I think I act that sometimes, which I think is mostly a good thing, but maybe not always a good thing. And it's funny because, I've been very blessed in my life. I have great parents, I have a great family. I was brought up in a really loving home. I was, had great, went to school and had a great education. I had great friends. I'm very blessed with my partner. We have a great house. We have a great life. And, there's always going to be something in life, right? So this is my thing, if you follow. This is my challenge. This is my, mission that I'm on. And, everybody has setbacks. And, this is something that we're choosing to do. We don't have to do it. We want to do it. It's an intentional journey. And so I'm okay with that, even though it is true, I'm used to things kind of working out in my life. I've been lucky that way. And this is one thing that hasn't followed that path in the same way. So that's been my challenge to get my mind around it.
Right.
But we're back in the saddle again, and we're
Yeah.
a couple of weeks away from the legal agreements being done, and then we're going to do a transfer in early May. So and the surrogate has indicated she's willing to do multiple transfers if the first one is unsuccessful, as it often is. So we'll see.
I have faith it'll work out for you.
Yeah, we're big believers that it will work out,
Yes.
and it honestly sounds like you and Michael and everyone, you're so ready for this baby.
Yeah.
So we're here rooting for you,
Yeah.
and we'll have to catch up another moment and get an update on the journey
Yeah.
if you'd like to.
Absolutely. That'd
Todd,
be great.
who picked out the pink coffee maker?
Yeah, and the pink KitchenAid.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a theme in the house. We just decided to have everything kind of pink. So we've got the pink KitchenAid mixer over here. This is the knife, the pink knife thing. I'll see if I can just lift this up for you so you can see it a little bit. And then we got all the pink stuff
I love it.
over here.
That's so cute.
The toaster and
That is
the
adorable.
yeah,
I think
there
you
we
need a
go, and
little
all
girl
the
to
little
play in
stuff
that
over
kitchen.
here, and then there's a pink coffee maker and a pink blender.
Yeah,
That's gorgeous. I love it.
yeah. I have visions of a little girl making coffee in there with all
Yeah.
your pink stuff.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, you gotta have fun, right? You gotta have fun in life.
I love it.
Absolutely. Well,
Well,
Todd, we don't want to take up all of your Sunday.
we have been very lucky to
Yes.
have you come on and share your story. And like I said, we would love to have an update at some point. We'll have
Yeah.
to keep in touch and do this again sometime.
Yeah.
We're
Do you
sending.
have any questions? for
Yeah.
us?
Do you have any questions for us? Like, we're pretty open.
No,
books.
I think this. Yeah, no, I think this kind of stuff is great because like I said at the very beginning, I think that it can be very overwhelming when somebody is starting this kind of thing and you don't really know what to do. You're terrified of making the wrong choice. What agency do I go with? What clinic do I go with? What surrogate do I go with? What donor do I go with? What lawyer do I mean, it's just really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And there's really no right answer. But I think that stuff like this, these kinds of podcasts and these kinds of, interviews and really help because I think it can make it more accessible to people. We have real stories that you're sharing, that I'm sharing. And so people out there are like, okay, I can do this too.
Yeah.
This is something that, can happen. And there are going to be problems. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be setbacks. But I think trying to be a resource and trying to explain to people about what it's like is great. So I salute the work you guys are doing with
Thank
these
you.
shows because I think it's great to kind of normalize it demystify it,
Yeah.
and kind of make it something that is, that should be celebrated, even if there are challenges, which of course there are, right? Because it's a challenging process.
Absolutely, yeah. But there's still you still get to clap sometimes.
There's joy in the journey to be found.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much,
Todd.
Todd.
This was lovely. We will talk to you soon, I'm sure. Cheers to Team Baby 2025.
Bye.
Bye, guys.